Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're continuing our topic on sexual reproduction, and we're talking about reproductive behaviors. Specifically, we started talking about reproductive behaviors of vertebrates. Now today we'll be talking about some of these reproductive behaviors. We'll talk about two of them. We'll talk about courtship and migration. So let's start with courtship. In many vertebrates, mating is usually dependent on courtship. Now, courtship is reproductive communication between males and females of a species, and it leads or results in sexual union. So, courtship is a reproductive communication between males and females of a species, and it ends in sexual union. Now, this communication can use variation of signals. We can use several signals. We have visual signals, auditory signals, and smell signals. So we have these various signals that are given between the male and the female during the courtship. Now, generally, males have a more striking appearance than females. In vertebrates, the males usually have a more striking or more alluring appearance than the females. Now, we mentioned signals during courtship. We said we have visual signals, auditory signals, and smell signals. Now, let's talk about some of these signals and the examples. So we have the visual signals. Now, examples of visual signals, as we know, visual signals, we're talking about signals that can be seen with the eyes. So examples of the visual signals, we have the tail display of a male peacock when near a peahen. So when a peacock is near a peahen, the male, when it's near the female, it displays its feathers, its tail feathers, to attract the female. So that's a visual signal. And another one we have is the orange colored head of a mature male lizard when it displays itself in front of a female. So when a male lizard is mature, it has an orange colored head. So when it displays this head in front of a female, it's a visual signal indicating willingness to mate. So that's a visual signal. Let's talk about auditory signals. Now, examples of the auditory signals include the nocturnal croaking of toads during the rainy season. So when toads croak at night during the rainy season, it's an indication, or it's an auditory signal indicating willingness to mate, or it's courtship behavior. Then mating calls of pigeons and crows is also an auditory signal. So those are signals that involve sound. So those are examples of those kind of signals. They indicate they are courtship signals. So we also have the smell signals. And examples of the smell signals, when sex attractants are secreted by the anal glands of civet cats. So some cats, the anal gland of some cats, the civet cats, can secrete some substances that attract the partner for mating. Then, because these are signals that can be smelled, these are substances that can be smelled, so these are smell signals. Then we have some sex attractants that are secreted in the urine of cows, of mares, and bitches. Bitches are the female of dogs. So the urine of those animals, there are sex attractants secreted in them, and these sex attractants are secreted when these animals are on it, when they are willing to mate. So those are smell signals. Now, courtship behavior is unique to a species. Each species have their own type of courtship behavior. Now, in many animals, especially birds, it is usually elaborate, involving a series of fixed patterns of movements or display between mating partners. In birds usually have elaborate courtship behaviors. They usually have patterns of movement, they display, and several processes between mating partners. Now, each of these movements is responsible for some action of the partner and triggers, in turn, the pre-programmed movement pattern by the partner. So this movement is responsible for, is a response to some action of the partner. So the movement could be a response to an action of a partner, and also it will trigger a movement in the other partner. So we have these various movements and various processes in different animals. Now, the partners must respond directly to each other's displays if the performance they display is to end in mating. This is because if the response is wrong, or if there's no response, that indicates an incompatible mate. So an unreceptive individual will not respond. It will simply not respond when approached by a potential mate. It will not give any response. So after some time, when this potential mate realizes that the individual or the organism that it's approaching is unreceptive, it will turn to another individual to indicate this receptiveness. Now let's talk about the functions of courtship behavior. So the first one, which is the most important one, is that it advertises the presence of sexually receptive individuals. So courtship behavior shows that an individual or an organism is sexually receptive. Also, it helps mature males or females of a species to recognize one another. So it prevents non-reproductive encounters. It prevents males and females that are not mature meeting with each other. So it prevents, animals may not be able to exactly know which one is a mature male or a mature female. So all this courtship behavior is to show that each individual is mature and ready for sexual reproduction. So it prevents non-reproductive encounters, like mating between immature individuals or individuals of the same sex or individuals of different species. Now, another importance of or function of courtship behavior is that it indicates sexual interest, not aggression. So this is especially important in predators. So because the submissive partner has to be assured that it's not going to be eaten by the dominant partner. So courtship behavior helps to indicate sexual interest, not aggression. Also, in some vertebrates, courtship behavior indicates or initiates the saturation of egg cells. So it helps the saturation of egg cells. So another function of courtship behavior is that in external fertilizers, it synchronizes the release of gametes by both partners. So the courtship behavior helps to synchronize the release of gametes. It helps to ensure that gametes are released at the same time by both partners. Now, in internal fertilizers, it coordinates egg release in the female with copulation, and it ends with the release of sperms by the females. So courtship behavior helps in this. Now, in addition to all of these functions that we mentioned, another thing that courtship behavior does is that a display male gives out information about his fitness to the female. So a female is able to recognize the most fit male, because during this courtship behaviors, there could be several partners indicating interest. So several male partners could indicate interest to the female. So it's during this courtship behavior that the female is able to recognize and discern the most fit individual, so that they can produce healthy, well-adapted young that have a high survival rate. So the female is able to recognize the male that is most fit from the courtship behavior, so that the organisms that will be produced are healthy, well-adapted, and they are fit to survive in their environment. So with that, we've come to the end of today's video. In our next video, we'll talk about another reproductive behavior. We'll talk about the reproductive behavior that arises after courtship, which is pairing. So see you in our next video.